I'm Damien Barrett and welcome to Access All Areas. The big winners from the round were the D's, the Dogs, the Blues, the Kangas and the Cats. Who impressed you the most, Matthew Lloyd?
There's two teams, Damon, that impressed me the most. The one team, the main one, the Bulldogs, I think they were back to their ballistic ways. They'd stopped scoring probably the previous month and they got back to their best against a quality side in the Adelaide Crows. And the second team is how quickly Carlton's making a name for themselves, how competitive they've become in such a short period of time under Brendan Bolton.
Sure. North Melbourne stayed unbeaten with a close win or narrow win against St Kilda. Yeah. They were definitely aided by a controversial free kick awarded to Todd Goldstein late in the game.
I think within the rules, Damo, it's there, this free kick, because you have to have your eyes on the contest, not the opposition ruckman. But maybe we've got to look at the rule, to how this can affect the game, because he just gets in, takes the space of the ruckman and gets a hit out. Just because your eyes are on someone, should we penalise someone so heavily like that? I'd say no. So maybe the rule needs to be looked at, but probably the decision is right here by that umpire.
I'd argue that you could try and take someone who doesn't know the game through that decision and not have that person at all convinced with what you said. I know what you're saying about the rule being the case, but it's not surely the way it's meant to be applied.
Well, I think it is. You must look at the ball and not the opposition ruckman. That's pretty much as it is. Yeah. And very unlucky at the Saints, but the umpire probably got it right.
What do you make of the Mason Wood situation where he was awarded a free kick? He was able to basically let the time run down, NFL style.
Well, the shot clock has added nothing to the fan experience. So at the ground, that's added no excitement, nothing. All it's done is actually had players say, oh, I'll actually take more time than I normally would have. So he would have had his shot by now normally. Yeah. So the shot clock's just added to his time. Great composure. He's done the right thing. But it's probably, they wouldn't scrap it during the year, would they, Damo? I think most people...
No, I think they're committed to it now. And look, I just think we have to put up with that situation now. They're not going to like that, the AFL, Lloydie, as far as I think I know what they're going to react to. But they can't change it. And once they introduce the shot clock, which, by the way, was probably because of what you used to do, when you used to take about a minute and a half to kick a goal. But what do you think? Do you think we can change it?
Well, it'd be great, wouldn't it, if you had to kick the ball by 30 seconds, not actually walk in by 30 seconds. Some would say that's unfair because we need longer than that. But that's the last 30 seconds of the game.
Yep.
He could have gone 15 seconds earlier.
Yep.
So maybe the time needs to be looked at.
I think once you introduce that rule where you give them 30 seconds, I think we're stuck with it. North Melbourne, what did you make of the win and the fact they're 7-zip?
I love their defensive mindset. Now, they conceded only 25 points to half-time, and their belief now. They didn't play their best footy.
Yep.
St Kilda team on the rise, but they still found a way to win. That's what good sides do. They play Essendon this week. They'll go to 8-0. They can start resting players in the back end of the year because they're in such a good position.
They're winning games that historically, or at least under the Brad Scott reign, they would have lost, haven't they? And that's a real credit to him and where they're at.
Oh, no doubt about that. And they're not relying on the obvious players like they used to. On the flip side of that, the Saints, Luke Dunstan, we saw tears after the game. So it shows a guy who is all about leadership. I think he could be the next captain of the club, Luke Dunstan.
You're rating that highly?
Yeah, rating that highly.
I don't mind it. I mean, it is a display of emotion, which is unusual. But I think if you see this post-match, it just gives you an insight as to what it means to him and where they're at as a club too.
Well, they've lost so many close ones this year, and I think as a young player, I've been fortunate to coach him in the academy. I think he's got, as I said, leadership written all over him, and they keep losing the close ones, and there comes a time where you get sick of it. I think that's where Dunstan's at the moment.
With Max Hudson style about it. Hey, Jake Stringer, you led the debate a couple of weeks ago, Lordo, when you, I think, alerted the footy world to the, I suppose, the footy, inverted commas, cheating that he was doing. Luke Beveridge highlighted it publicly. He returned to doing what he really should be doing on the weekend, didn't he?
He's always going to do the freakish things, but you don't make a career out of being a freakish player. You make your career out of doing the little things well, and he got back to doing that on the weekend. They wanted him to come up at the ball like this, not keep going back, which I use the word cheating, back towards goal. So he played the percentages much more, and he got the results here. Just using his body well, too big and strong. He was probably the difference on the weekend, along with Bontempelli, who found some great touch.
It's a good sign, isn't it, when someone can absorb the criticism they copped, from his coach inclusive of that criticism, and yourself and other commentators, but to then respond that way.
Exactly, and he's a smart player. He did a freakish thing there, but there's so many more basics, which he did well, which got other Dogs into the game. 28-12 free kick count that went the Bulldogs' way, Lordo. It was maybe a few even uppers late in the piece too. One umpire, 17-1 went the Bulldogs' way. Did you take that
anything out of that for the result?
Not at this stage. I want to go over them more forensically in time, but I think you don't just look at the free kick count and say, this is wrong. You've got to look at them individually, and the Western Bulldogs have had a great run all year, not just in this game, but I think it's because of the way they play.
And you didn't notice anything as you watched the game?
There was a couple of bad decisions. I thought there was a horrendous deliberate out of bounds against the Jed Adcock, and also there was a ruck infringement against Roughhead, but apart from that, there weren't too many bad ones.
You touched on Carlton off the top here. Levi Casbolt was crucial to what they did against Collingwood, and it was a really feel-good story, wasn't it? Him taking this mark at this stage of the game and then going back and doing this, which he hadn't been able to do historically.
No, he's had a poor year in front of goal again. He's had a poor career in front of goal, and this was great for him, and maybe he'll do something for his confidence. Because of his ball drop, Damo, he's never going to be a good kick for goal, but he still kicked 2 on the full, missed 1, but he kicked that one when it counted, and that may do a lot for his confidence, but still, I don't think it's ever going to get where he becomes an elite kick, I don't think.
Leaves Collingwood 2 and 5. The wins coming unusually against Richmond in round 2 and then an easy one against Essendon. They're not tracking well, are they?
No.
If you factor in the last 18 matches of home and away football this club has played, they've won 4. That's enough for me to say that they're not going anywhere near where they want to be going. And it's enough for me to also say that they actually need to start tinkering, Auto, pretty seriously before it gets way away from them.
Tinkering in what way?
I think they need to reassess where they're at and maybe ask some questions as to, we have chosen to go down this path. And that's okay. You've got every right to do that the way they've done it with their recruiting and the type of person they've brought into that footy club. And I know they've got injuries. But at the same time, when you've got the resources that club does have, and they've added another one in Gubby Allen during the week. I mean, it's going to be another big-name football person into that structure. There's almost no wiggle room now that you're 5 years into this change.
No, I agree with you. I think their skill level also is one of the worst in the competition. They've become a bottom 4 team. The only wins they've had are against Richmond and Essendon, bottom 5 clubs, and they got Brisbane at the Gabba this week. They'll nearly go in as underdogs in that game.
I know it's sometimes an easy thing to ask, but do you know what they stand for as a footy club when they run out each week at this stage?
I couldn't say that, no.
Yeah, whereas you do with the Saints even, don't you? Despite the same scoreline.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Brendan Goddard, Lordo, regularly criticised for his demonstrative actions. On the weekend against the Swans, they ended up losing this game pretty badly, but he's clearly seeking information from the bench here.
You wouldn't meet a more professional and passionate person in a football club than Brendan Goddard, but his body language I don't like, a lot, because this is. I'd love being an opposition player and seeing him having a go at his interchange bench because he's confused about a tactic, and the way he speaks to players. Some will say Luke Hodge does it, but when you're on top, I think and you've got a more experienced group, you can do that. But he's playing in a team that's only going to win 2 or 3 games. I want to see him wrap an arm around a player sometimes and not just looks like it's berating too often. And players just get their backs up. And that's what Brendan's got to try and do better this year, I think, as captain.
Yeah, sure. Geelong, 170-plus percentage now after the 7 games. And they did a number in the end again, didn't they, on the Eagles?
Yeah, they'll be thereabouts. They'll be top 4. But I still don't think they've played great opposition. West Coast, if they beat them in Perth, that's a great win. Here, doesn't stand for much because we'll talk about West Coast shortly. But they've had a great run, apart from their win against Hawthorn in round 1. I don't think they've beaten too much. So if they can beat the Crows in Adelaide on Friday night, I'll say yes, they are the real deal.
It's a reserving judgment on Friday night. I
still am, because I think they've had a really soft run. They've played Brisbane, they've played Essendon, so I don't think they've beaten too much just yet.
The team they did beat has lost to Hawthorn, Sydney and Geelong now. I don't think we're any clearer as to knowing if this club's going to be there again.
I'm clear that they won't win the premiership.
Really?
West Coast, I think that's how badly they are playing on the road. I was probably saying to others, they played in the grand final, so they can't be flat track bullies. But when you look at their record, they've won 1 game in the last 9 against top 8 sides. So that proves to me they can't win the big one.
Okay, so line through the Eagles when it comes to the flag.
Yeah, I think so.
Big call.
They just can't travel.
Yep. Suns are into their 6th season of AFL life, and the GWS is into 5th season of AFL life. Just want to contrast the initial recruits they got, which is on this screen here, Lordo.
They are going in different directions, these 2 clubs. The Suns have been in for 6 years, as you said. The Giants 5, yet the players they first got into the club, look at the value they've got out of Ward, Davis, Scully, Palmer. Reed's got a tick only because he's back and still on the list, yet only 3 left. From the Suns, and then you look at where they're at now, Damo.
Yeah, and subsequent to that establishment list, they've also, the 2 clubs have added these players to their lists, and again, it's stark by way of comparison as to the impact these players are having.
And I think the younger Giants who they've recruited are much better, although they've had a bad luck with injuries, the Suns. But look at the Mumford, Shaw, Pat Full, Stevie J this year, just the value, and Ryan Griffin to a lesser extent, the value they're getting out of those experienced players. It's doing so much for the development of the kids.
The biggest name on those lists is Gary Ablett, and there's a looming issue there with the Suns, Lordo, with his leadership. Post-match, look, I think he's well within his rights to go and speak to this disgruntled supporter, because there was language allegedly being said in front of children. Time over again, though, do you engage in a conversation with a supporter?
I don't mind it. I don't mind it because Gary just found at the time that this guy was just too over the top and needed to be reined in. But more to the fact, Damo, is you've been all over Gary on the field, and maybe that they're disappointed with the way he's been playing. And I was slow to come around to it, but now I think you've been 100% correct. Well, where does he go from here? Is he past his best, or is it more the mindset of Gary at the moment?
Yeah, look, it's probably all those questions are in the mix. It's a club issue. It's not just a perception issue now and an observation from an outside. That they put him through a very vigorous internal leading teams type session last week, and while he's had that happen to him before, including at Geelong, it was pretty brutal, and there were younger players who haven't got the track records, and it's not easy, I wouldn't imagine, Lordo, for a guy of his status and credibility to cop those sorts of questions. And then the problem the club's got, when you do that and you then go and dish that up as they did on the weekend, and the next 4 matches, this club, you wouldn't see them getting within 5 goals of any of the next 4 matches. I think it's in real trouble.
Yeah, you're right. One star who's going a bit better on the field is Lance Franklin, Damo. We found this funny over the weekend. He's having a shot for goal. What's the guy at the back there trying to moon the great Lance Franklin, trying to put him off? He's got to be better than that. He's got to at least get in the eye line. Maybe go behind the goals and put Buddy off.
Well, he knows where the cameras are, that bloke. Hey, Lordo, thank you.
Thanks, Damo.
And thanks again for joining us. We'll catch you next Monday for another edition of Access All Areas. Goodbye.